Good morning, traders. Welcome to today's market review. This is Fred Razak at CMTrading. Today is November 29th, 2022, and today is Tuesday morning. So looking at the highlights of the day, the Dow Jones loses its track. We're going to take a look at that in just a second, but first, major economic events for today. So there's an important number coming out of the United States at 5 p.m. South African time. It's called the Consumer Confidence Number. And believe you me, this number adds weight just as much as NFP and the inflation rate right now. So you want to know that this number is coming out. Now looking at the various markets, starting out with the Forex symbols, the British pound bounces while the major is pretty much unchanged. Now looking at the indices, the Dow Jones sells off while the NASDAQ is down as well. Looking at commodities, gold remains unchanged while oil makes a comeback and rallies right back. And looking at the stocks, they did retrace at resistance, each one on its own threshold. And lastly, Bitcoin does rally back and bounce as well. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So we're first going to take a look at the Euro USD. You can see, look at that consolidation right there at its 200-day moving average, waiting on the Dow Jones. And look at that. The markets are retaliating and responding to it. Now, the GBP did bounce back yesterday. If we look at that, that's a nice little bounce. Not big, but that's previous resistance, subsequent support. So kind of say you can find that on those levels as well. Now, looking at the Aussie dollar also, out of the one that was the weakest, it actually bounced, okay, and crossing over the double crossing averages, okay, which is really very, very important, especially on a 4-hour chart. So keep that in mind. If that's going to sustain itself, it could go back to its highs again and is making a higher low. So that's something to consider looking at this into today's session. Now, really, the Forex symbols have taken a step back. If we look at commodities, also they've taken a step back. Gold just really unchanged here at 1752. Just really just inching forward and backwards, okay? If we look at crude oil also, this was something else yesterday. A nice little rally up from $73 up to $75, okay? So it did rally back, as you can see, and that is a major threshold, excuse me, to 78 even. That's a major threshold, as this is a V formation. Every time you have these type of V formations, the next step is hopefully somewhat of a rally. But let's see if it peters out, because you are going with lower volume here. So that's something to consider. It's lower volume, so it could be just like a short squeeze and squeeze everybody out before it takes it further down. So keep an eye on this, because this could potentially be a great play on the downside. Now looking at the U.S. markets, the Dow Jones yesterday sold off over 400 to 500 points, you know, and it's like a blimp compared to how much it did rally over the past, look at that, over the past month and a half. Question is this a point? Is this a very important point? Because you see two things here. Over the moving averages, there's a crossover. Okay, the 8-day is crossing over the 30-day moving average on a 4-day chart. Now, on a daily, we're not even close to that. I mean, for that to happen, we've got to be somewhere at 32,000, and I'm not sure that we're going to get there. But that's something to consider. Now, looking at the stocks, also, they're at that levels. Now, looking at NASDAQ, before we jump to the stocks, I would have expected this to sell off even further, because this has really been the weakest of the lot, okay? Between all the stocks out there, the tech stocks have been really very weak. So I would have expected this to go further down. And if we look at it, okay, if we look at the individual stocks, Apple was down considerably, okay? A nice gap down and a sell-off. If we look at Alcoa even, which is a Dow Jones stock, was also off and passing that 30-day moving average on a 4-hour chart. That's important. Facebook rallied back somehow. Okay, really unchanged. That's the truth. It did trade lower back. Excuse me. It bounced the previous day. We got that bounce, okay, to 117, and then we were selling off here at 108, and we're just below that level of just inching further down. Now, Facebook is not trading big, but still, it's something to look at. Now, Microsoft did retrace significantly, as you can see here, to 241. Now, this is a bona fide resistance-ish level, okay? This top level is bona fide resistance, okay? That you can't get more resistant than that. That is as resistance as you get. So that's something to consider. After we hit that resistance on Thursday, Friday, of last week and then selling off. Now, JP Morgan also sold off significantly, getting back to that 38-day moving average also. So we got to keep an eye if this is going to be a sell-off time, as people are, kind of booking their profits towards the end of the year, unloading their stocks, going into the end of 2022. Now, lastly, looking at Intel, this is also very important because this was relatively weak, and you can see it's crossing over those two moving averages. And that's really important because Intel is a really important stock as well. Now, looking at Bitcoin naturally, okay, just really not doing much. I mean, yeah, it got a bounce, okay, but it's crapshoot, okay, because there's no rhyme or reason right now. It's just trading in a really tight range and just these massive moves with decent volume, but there's no follow through, and then the volume just peters out. So this is still a little bit difficult to trade in its current environment. So we got big news coming up this week with NFP on Friday. So expect some volatility in the markets, but be aware, consumer confidence today is a big number by itself. This is Fred Razak. I want to wish you guys a great trading day. Thank you.